Welcome to the Ahinda Show, where we dive deep into pressing social issues, unraveling their complexities, and exploring various perspectives. Today, we tackle the topic of merit trap, an exploration of meritocracy, its implications, and the hidden dynamics that perpetuate inequality. I'm your host, Bhandavya, and joining me today is Mr. Nethrapal, an expert in the field of social justice and education. Welcome, Mr. Nethrapal.
Namaste, Bhandavya. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's start from the basics. Mr. Nethrapal, could you explain what meritocracy is and how it's supposed to function?
Yeah, certainly. Meritocracy is something which is antithetical to monarchy. Like, for example, you can think of monarchy. What used to happen in monarchy is Raja ka beta Raja banega. Okay,
Right.
so there is nothing like merit or abilities. Now, what is happening if you want to get into a big position in government, you have to write an exam, correct? UPSC. Then you have to get you have to you there will be various rounds, then eliminations. So that is what is called merit, standardized scores. So in the earlier system, what used to happen? Raja ka beta hi Raja banega. But in this
Yes.
merit ka this thing, what will happen is that only those who have the deserving abilities and merit, that is what they will occupy those positions. Only the deserving will come. If you see the word meritocracy, it combines two words: merit from the Latin meritum, meaning deserving, and the suffix cracy from the Greek kratos, meaning power or rule. So it basically promotes the idea that success should be determined by talent, effort, and achievement rather than by social class or wealth.
That sounds ideal. But, sir, does it always work that way?
Yeah, it see this is what is the battle which everyone is faced with, because see at one end you have to promote merit, okay, but at the same time it is the same merit which creates inequalities in the societies. So what happens is that you 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 like, for example, I'll tell you one. Michael Eng was the first person who talked about this meritocracy. In his 1958 essay, The Rise of Meritocracy, he argued that meritocracy actually promises fairness, but it often fails to deliver. Theoretically, it's a good idea, but practically, when you see, what happens is that merit itself creates inequality. Okay, so for example, I will tell you one example. Like, if you see Ambani's today, okay, do you have the same ability as Ambani's to start a business? No, correct. So it is something called privilege. But what happens is that the people who have this privilege, they don't recognize that they have inherited this. Many of them don't recognize this, and they always argue for merit. But the real issue is that they have been endowed with a lot of privileges which they cannot see. Okay, so using this, what happens is that they keep occupying more and more resources, they become more and more powerful in the system, and then it keeps on perpetuating for ages. So that is the issue with meritocracy, because it can perpetuate privilege by favoring those who already have access to better resources and opportunities. Like, for example, I'll tell you, do you think that a rich kid and a poor kid are placed at the same level?
No.
Yeah, correct. So it's something like that. So because both have different levels at which they are standing, and then they have to be empowered in a different way to come up. Okay,
True.
yeah.
So that's an interesting point, sir. Can you elaborate on how meritocracy can exacerbate social inequalities?
Yeah, like, for example, see, Young, when he wrote this essay, he observed that those who succeed academically and professionally often pass on their advantages to the children. See, in India also you can see, usually educated child, like, if, for example, if you go to a national public school in Bangalore, what happens is that they have an alumni quota. Okay, like those who have studied in national public school will be preferred in national public school. Okay, so what happens is that they often pass on these privileges unknowingly to their children. So many a times they do not know. And then they get better access to education. And more important, a rich, like for example, if a person has a good network, will he pass it on to his kids? Will it help?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So what happens is that over a period of time, this so-called meritocracy, in the name of meritocracy, they create something called a self-perpetuating elite. They become elites. They tell that I have all the merit. Okay. So and this in turn, what happens is that inequalities will rise. Like for example, wealth inequality will rise. Power gets concentrated only with few people. But those people, what will they tell? Who have the power and the wealth, they tell that, see, I got it by merit. I have worked hard for that. But do they recognize the fact that they had legacy of all these things which other kids did not have? So they will never recognize this. So, and what happens is that this merit itself becomes a way to justify these disparities. What will happen is that if you see a poor kid, you will tell that that kid does not have merit. But did he have the ability to go to a school? Was he given a good school? It is not. So, because that is the issue. See, people don't recognize the privileges which they have. And because of this, many people, in the name of merit, they start justifying inequalities.
Yes. So meritocracy might not be as fair as it appears. So what about the notion that meritocracy promotes efficiency?
Yeah, yeah. See, this is something which is the battle even in our constitution. Okay, so if you look at Article 335 in our constitution, it tells you can, you see, merit, the antithesis of merit is reservations, correct? So if you promote reservation, it should not affect efficiency. That is what it tells, Article 335. So but what I am telling you is, see, you have written exams, I know that. uh, what is merit defined in those exams? It is actually standardized test, correct? What marks you have got in 10th, what marks you have got in 12th, and what marks you are going to get in some exams which you write, competitive exams. But does these examinations look at your creativity, what you're capable of? Does it look at your emotional intelligence? Or some of them are very good at handling things in, like for example, some of them may be good at drafting some letter, drafting a legal case. Some of them may be good at going and arguing in front of the case. So all these things are not captured. Actually, the merit what we are talking of is only a standardized test and few scores which have been accepted in the society. So this, what happens is that there is a narrow focus on academic intelligence alone. So this, and also you must have seen also, like for example, many people who tell that who have great merit, like that is great marks in their exams, end up a big failures once they come to real world, correct? So they don't succeed, and instead you see the last benchers doing very well. Most of the startups, if you see, what has happened is that they are all dropouts, correct? They are dropouts from college. Bill Gates was a dropout. Then the Facebook founder was a dropout. Steve Jobs. So there are so many guys, so many people. So the real world is a different platform where you have to really work hard, and then you have to come up with new innovations to succeed. So it's different. So the first thing is that merit itself is a very abstract concept. Okay, you may be good in something, someone else may be good in some other thing. So to bring a uniformity in merit is very difficult. Merit itself is a very abstract concept. So that is the problem. And how to measure this merit, who should deserve into this? Like for example, I'll tell you, if you take the various university rankings all over the world, Indian universities don't stand a chance at all. Okay, most of it is all American universities, European universities. So does that mean that if you go only by merit, we should take all the Americans and employ them in government here? Does it mean that we have to employ all Europeans here? No, correct. So that is what I am telling. So see, you may have to promote more egalitarian systems. Like for example, you may have to give opportunities to the marginalized. So all these things come up. So that is where this notion of merit is very important.
So you were mentioning about invisible privileges, sir. So how does these factors work with Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos?
Yeah, see, this is see, if you tell Bill Gates that you were privileged, he will never agree. Okay, so he will always tell that he worked hard, he worked 24/7, he built the empire, all those things. Even Jeff Bezos, anybody, all the top guys will do the same thing. But I have to tell you that, do you know that Bill Gates was one of the very few kids who got a chance to use a computer very early in his life?
Yes.
Can you expect the same thing with a rural kid in India or even a urban middle class houses where computers are still a dream? It's not possible, correct? So Bill Gates got a computer at a very young age. Now you forget about parents funding the initial funding for some businesses in India. Now, if you see Amazon, Dell, Facebook, any big corporations in India, it were the parents who funded these companies. And Bill Gates' first break with was with IBM. And you know why he got that first break with IBM? It was because of a family connection. It was because of a network. The biggest success factor for most of these entrepreneurs was the intergenerational wealth, which they could fall back on. See, in case Bill Gates would have failed, nothing could have happened. But for many people in India, what happens is they don't have that kind of an intergenerational wealth. If they fail, then they are dead. So they cannot come and venture back. Many people I see in Instagram, they keep telling that you keep failing. But I'm telling you, if you keep failing, you don't have any wealth, then you will go completely bankrupt. In many, so these are the differences which are there.
So, Sir Thomas Piketty, he also offers a critique for meritocracy. What is your say on that, and what are his arguments on that?
Yeah, Piketty is a great economist, a French economist, and then I have read both his book, Capital in 21st Century and Capital and Ideology. Okay, so Piketty, he basically describes in data like wealth inequality. Recently, also, he has published one paper where he described that 92% of the billionaires in India are from the upper caste. So that is the kind of wealth inequality he was talking about. So what Piketty argues is that meritocracy may be fair, okay, but what happens is that meritocracy also gives them a chance to justify wealth and income inequality. For example, if you go and ask a rich person, why, why you favor meritocracy? Why your wealth inequality? You distribute some of your wealth to others. You will tell that no, I have worked hard for this. I got it through a lot of hard work. So what happens is in societies, especially like India, where wealth and opportunities are unequally distributed, the notion that wealth is a direct result of individual merit can actually legitimize existing disparities. Okay, for example, if you ask a very rich person that why, why I'm poor, why India is poor, he will tell that see, the one section of the society not having that ability, they don't have the like skills to come up, all these things. So Piketty, in that sense, what he highlights is that many portions of this wealth, especially this wealth in India, are inherited, not earned. Like for example, if you see even all the big corporations in India, they are all family legacies. They are all right pre-independence, post-independence. Most of these companies have existed for a long time, so they are not built. So he highlights that meritocratic ideal that economic rewards are directly tied to individual talent and hard work. But what happens is that, see, there is so much of a gap in access to quality education, intergenerational wealth. See, invariably, almost everywhere, for education, even in the US, even in India, it is towards the wealthy. One example I can tell you is NEET today. NEET, if you pay 1 crore, you're going to get a seat in any medical colleges, okay, irrespective of what marks you get. Correct. So people are getting medical seats at 110 marks out of 720. So you just pay 50 lakhs, you will get. So can you tell that that's a meritocratic system?
No.
Yeah, you cannot tell that it's a meritocratic system, because see, those people who have that wealth, they have that advantage. Okay, so but that is the problem. That is what Piketty tells, that see, merit actually what happens is that inequality, it promotes inequality. It pushes the resources to one group, so called an elite group. Okay, they actually control everything, like for example, right from politics to businesses to educational institutions to everything. So, and the other class is denied. Like for example, I'll tell you what is the present school fees in India, in many schools, top English schools. 2 lakhs per
It
year,
is, yeah,
2 to 3
it is
lakhs.
high.
How many of us can afford? Very
Very
less,
few.
very few. And where are the other kids pushed to? They are pushed to state schools or government schools. What is the quality of education there? Quality of education is nothing. No, in government school, kids start learning English at grade 5. Okay, can you ask that kid to compete with a NPS kid or a DPS kid?
No.
It can never happen. So what happens is that through all these systems, institutions, and then various accesses, privileges which are existing, the inequalities just keep rising in the system.
I agree, sir. So, bringing this conversation closer to the home, what is your say on how meritocracy is affecting the minorities, like the OBCs, STs, and SCs?
Yeah, see, in India, merit means SC, ST, OBCs. That is the target group, because this is the group which have been given some relaxation, okay, for getting seats. And what has happened now is that a very big perception has been built that reservation actually compromises merit in a very big way. For example, at IITs, reserve category students are often perceived to have lower academic ability in spite of small differences in entrance exam scores. For example, I'll tell you today, NEET, when we are talking of a general merit student is getting at 130, paying money. Okay, a AC kid is getting at 540 marks, reserved seat. Who is better? So these are the problems. So what I am telling is, but still what happens is that people will only target the marginalized group, because they'll tell that you are taking the reservations, and then the stigma is attached, and the stigma does not stay there only till you finish the exams. It goes into the professional life. Many companies, I'm telling you, even in IITs or anything, they are taking the JE entrance exam ranks as the criteria. They don't look at the CGPA. See, I agree that many kids, SC, ST, OBC kids, marginalized group kids, they come through state schools. They don't go to CBSE schools. They have bad schooling. So they require some handholding at IITs. So initially their marks will be low, but as they go progress, they catch up. They start doing very well. So, but at the end, they end up with good CGPA. But what happens is that many people don't go by that. They go only by the entry level IIT JEE rank. So,
Yes, sir, that is true. Yes, it seems to be very troubling. So, what do you think about meritocracy in the representation of strategic positions?
see, what happens is that because of this merit, see, you know that reservation is only at the entry level, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, it is not there in the promotions or anything. What happens is that, see, because of merit, it creates some kind of a merit filter. Okay, every step, no, this marginalized groups have to prove themselves. Okay, so it is not that it is given to them so easily. No positions comes to them easily. So what happens at each and every step, they get filtered out, and as they go higher and higher, almost there is nobody at the top.
Yes.
Recently, I think you must have heard Rahul Gandhi talking about this. Seven secretaries at the top. Hmm?
Yes.
So, see, entry level, so many people are entering where there are nobody at the top. Okay, so despite reservations, what happens is that this merit filter works. The complex rules and then biases often prevent this group from achieving great representation at the strategic position. At the top level, actually, there is nobody there. One more important thing I want to tell you this, because you were talking about this efficiency, correct? Reservation and
Yes.
efficiency. There is a famous paper by American Journal of Political Science where they took a sample of all IAS officers in India. They took both general category IAS officers and reserved category IAS officers. A large pool of them were taken and they measured the bureaucratic efficiency. That is, they took the output. They saw what was their performance, everything. And they found that there is no impact of reservations. All were performing well, and instead they found that some of the best people, okay, were from the reserved category. So this is the myth which has been promoted. Okay, so that if you come from reservation, it is always they are all inefficient. So that is not the thing, because see, in UPSC the marks difference is 1% to 2%. That's all. If you get 1% less, can you tell that they are inefficient? Huh? The competition is so intense. Okay, so
Yes, sir. So, how do you think the concept of adequate representation acts into this?
yeah, see, merit, efficiency, and then adequate representation all are interlinked. Okay, so for example, what happens is that if you allow only merit, it may lead to lesser representation for certain groups. This is what happened pre-independence also. Like for the first time, this issue of adequate representation came up in the Wadiyar's time, like in Mysore. What happens? The entire Mysore Darbar, okay, all the officers, everybody were from one class, the Brahmin class. 100% officers were from that. So then what happened? The Lingayats, the Vakaligas, and the non-Brahmins, they went and demanded Wadayar that you please see, we are not represented at all. You please give us the representation. So their Wadayars, what they did was they appointed a committee called Miller's Committee in 1919. So for the first time, this was the committee which defined the words merit, efficiency, and adequate representation. Okay, all the three things were defined, and this is where the word efficiency is coming. I'm telling you, in Miller's Committee, efficiency, they clearly told that, see, just because you are going to a higher education college and getting some academic qualification, it does not mean that you have you have merit and then you are very efficient. See, there are other qualities like empathy, honesty, common sense, which cannot be quantified. They argued that, see, in a government setup, no, you need to involve everybody. Okay, so many a times what happens, if you don't involve a certain group, you will not understand their problems. So, and also that person who has not been involved in the government, you'll always be blaming the government for not involving him. So by involving him, what will happen is that a more sense of equality, brotherhood will come among all the groups in the country. That was what the Miller's Committee told, and this is the basic idea of like what is adequate representation. Adequate representation means, like, for example, you give them some standing in the representation of like various levels, like government services, political representation, judiciary, even in private sector, everything.
Mr. Nethrapal, your insights have been invaluable. So, before we wrap up, could you please share some final thoughts on how we can reconcile merit with social justice?
Yeah. See, reconciling merit with social justice require a broader understanding of what constitutes merit. So people really don't understand what is merit. The role of privileges in building that merit, they don't understand. They think that just because a standardized test score you get, you are more meritorious. Okay. Today, I'm telling you, many kids in Tamil Nadu, they are killing themselves for not getting medical seats because they are not able to clear NEET. Does that mean that they don't have merit? You must go and see their 12th standard marks. Most of them have got 98%, 97%. Does that mean that they don't have merit? No, it's not like that. See, it is only the educational outcomes which are so different in both the, like for example, CBSE and state schools. So if the NEET exam is more inclined towards CBSE curriculum, the state curriculum students will obviously find it extremely difficult because both are not on same footing. And even see, the thing is that traditionally the state schools, they have emphasized rote learning, then mugging up things, not basically on analytical ability. So suddenly if you give them analytical ability questions, they will not be able to do. So what happens is that, see, merit, when you are looking at merit, you also have to look at the privilege. Okay, a merit of a disadvantaged child without any privilege is much higher than merit of a privileged child. Correct? So because we can never compare this, and then see, both these things are required. See what I'm telling, we cannot do away with merit, but at the same time we should also give representation to people who are not represented. Only by reconciling this we can coexist. That is what I feel.
Thank you, Mr. Nethrapal, for shedding light on this complex issue. So that's all for today's episode.